Upon viewing this episode for the first time, I thought the episode was alright. Dare I say I even liked it. It was more of what I was expecting from a show like Doctor Who. While it wasn't perfect, I thought it was a breath of fresh air in a series that has had terrible trouble keeping my interest. This was the kind of episode I thought could fit right in with the previous series. Upon rewatching this episode, I think I'll revoke that last bit. This episode is definitely the strongest out of all of them so far. If anything, I can at least praise this episode, Kerblam, to be the most competently put together in a series that seems to be made by full-time, underpaid cubicle workers. There was a solid foundation here and we got some cool moments and twists out of it. There were still lots of stupid moments though. There's still the same schlock you'd expect from this series I seem to have missed when I saw this episode the first time.
Why you two? That's robophobic. Some of my best friends are robots.
You'll be right at home here then.
So for me, it's a mixed bag. A finely made product with the typical dumb stuff you'd expect from the series sprinkled over here and there. We start the episode with the Doctor struggling to control her TARDIS as usual. Which seems to happen a lot in this series for some reason. Woman drivers, anyone? Please just give me this one, just this one. A strange looking robot enters their TARDIS and delivers the Doctor a reference to a better time. They get a call for help along with the package, so they feel inclined to travel to Kerblam and go undercover to see what's up. I must say, I quite dig the setup. It gives off an undercover spy theme, and due to all this, all the characters have their own role to play and work together to find out what's wrong. Almost everyone. The dialogue, while not well written, at least doesn't feel as wasted as it did before. There were questions being asked that were actually relevant, and some alright character building moments. Everyone gets a good amount of screen time and their own time to shine. I really liked it when Graham befriended the maintenance boy to help him along with the warehouse. I don't know what it is about Graham using his old man charm to manipulate others. It just feels so right for some reason. We learn a bit about Ryan near the beginning of the episode, where he worked and how he dealt with his first job. No, it's not exactly interesting, but it gives something, even if just a little, to the character. Does raise a bigger question though. At the very start of the series, at episode 1, we're introduced to Ryan, whose main character gimmick seems to be that he has dyspraxia. Well, there's nothing wrong with that in itself really, especially if you work it into the story. But so far, there hasn't been a single moment in the entire series that the dyspraxia has come into play. Okay, sorry, there was one moment where it was brought up in episode 2.
See? Second nature now.
No, not really. Thanks for waiting.
Always.
You know, for a guy with dyspraxia, you sure do have really good aim. It's not an integral detail to anything in the series, but that's exactly why it's so strange to me. For some reason, they made Ryan have dyspraxia, for the sake of having dyspraxia. So far, it has not gone into play for anything. I don't understand why you would give a character a condition if you're not going to use it in any way. Then again, I don't know why you would introduce an entire character if you're not going to use her either. I know I've pretty much mentioned everything I needed to say about Yaz in the last review, but unfortunately my opinion hasn't changed about her here. She is still as lifeless as she's been throughout the series so far. Okay, to give Yaz some credit, she does do stuff. The problem is that she never does anything integral on her own, and there's absolutely nothing to make her stand out from the rest of the companions. Take this scene for example, where the Doctor, Ryan and Yaz confront the managers about disappearing workers.
Maybe you should call the police.
There are no police here.
The authorities then.
We are the authorities. Kerblam is its own jurisdiction.
You know that Yaz is a police officer, right, Doctor? I'm aware that Yaz obviously doesn't have much authority in this time, but she could at least use her skills as a police officer to confront and question the people who should be responsible for the missing workers.
Someone was worried about their own safety, and now we're finding out other people are going missing.
They're auto-generated during the order process, but they're placed in boxes by the workers in fulfillment. Your section.
Have you tried working down there? There's no time to add stuff to slips. This was done somewhere else before it gets to fulfillment.
Jeez, Ryan sounds more like a police officer than Yaz does. I know it makes sense that Ryan would bring up this part of the job, since he was the one that was working there. It just highlights how Yaz has not been given anything valuable to do. There is nothing that she does that she can bring up in an important investigation the way Ryan does. Look at Yaz just sitting there, looking all serious and important, pretending she has any idea what's going on. You're a credit to the team, Yaz. Never change. The Doctor was alright. Save the beginning of the episode, I wasn't as annoyed with her as I have been. She seemed a lot more focused in solving the mystery than she was telling horrible jokes, something I can appreciate. Other than that though, she's the same, just less annoying overall. Except when she's belting on about workers' rights. She's not wrong, per se, but it's so condescending and annoying listening to her act all superior all the time. Though that wouldn't be the first time coming from her. The Doctor and Ryan investigate dispatch, where they meet, Girl? It doesn't matter, she's not gonna last. Girl tells them workers have been mysteriously disappearing from the warehouse and that they suspect the manager might have something to do with it. We later learn that Girl also has the hots for... Oh, for goodness sake, what are their names? Kira and Charlie. Okay. We later learn that Kira also has the hots for the maintenance boy, Charlie, the boy who Graham was able to befriend beforehand for information on suspicious things happening. While Ryan and the Doctor examine dispatch, Yaz heads down to the warehouse and speaks to one of the employees, where we learn the exact same information that was just explained to us, except it's shown in a more visual way. Which makes you wonder why they were all separated in the first place. Okay, that's not entirely true. This character, Dan, helps emphasize the suspicious tone of the place. We also learn his life story for a good minute or two before he shockingly dies. Yeah, he just dies. That's odd, seeing as how he was on the actor call at the very end of episode 1. Would have thought he'd at least have a little more screen time than 5 minutes. The only reason he seems to exist is for this moment at the very end to give him closure.
I want to take this to his daughter. Tell her how much he loved it, how much he loved her.
Yes, let's give this trinket back to a guy I knew for 2 minutes' daughter that we never see nor have the time to bother showing. If there's one thing that really bugs me the most with shows, is doing this kind of pointless tragedy, just to get an emotion out of the audience watching. The Doctor's trousers are more tragic than the subplot. For an actor that's as well known as he is, it's weird that he's only relegated to exposition and filler like this.
Whilst we were busy staring at our phones, technology went and nicked our jobs.
Great conversation, guys, but unnecessary talking can lead to efficiency reductions. Why not pick up the pace a little?
Wow, that robot just described how I feel about the entire series. Where were you when the Doctor went on about antimatter energy?
It's like the iPhone version of CERN, accelerating enough particles to power this entire craft.
So how does it work?
The particle accelerator smashes the atoms together like a little antimatter factory to produce positive...
Great conversation, guys, but unnecessary talking can lead to efficiency reductions. Why not pick up the pace a little?
I'm making a new rule. Every time there's a large amount of unnecessary talking, I'm making this robot appear. He'll be a new In Case You Care regular, how about that? While we're on the subject, now would be a good time to talk about the threat of this episode. The main obstacle the Doctor and gang have to overcome is the Kerblam Man. Depending on who you are, these robots are going to be something you find either really creepy or kind of adorable. I must say, I rather like these monsters. Or robots even. They're always looming over and watching everything you do, and just when you start to get unsettled, you see those huge anime-like eyes and large smile, and you can't help but laugh at how silly they look. I guess it must be because I can actually see a company doing something like this for real. It's always funny seeing people hide how horrifying something looks just by putting a massive smile on it. You know, like Tickle Me Elmo. There isn't really much to them though. There's probably more to the Narnians than there is to the Kerblam Man, which is weird because I hated I think it's mainly to do with the Kerblam Man actually being appropriate and integral to the story of the episode. Without them, it just wouldn't be the same, and their approachable appearance makes their unknown actions feel more terrifying to think about. I mean, look at them! There is no conscience in them at all. You have no clue what's going on in that lifeless robotic head of it. The presence of these robots are so good that it really does improve the enjoyment of the episode. You know, I always find it hilarious what the people designing the Kerblam man were thinking when they made it strong enough to punch holes through walls and be able to pick people up and choke them by the neck. So, there we have it. The best threat we've had in the entire series so far is a robot postman. Well, that about wraps it up for all the new characters, at least the ones I care talking about. Yeah, for a warehouse that is said to be miles big and holds 10,000 workers, it sure does feel empty. Not small, but empty. There's a number of establishing shots that try and show off how massive the place really is, and while it does feel a bit green screeny, it's not enough to be too distracting, and it gets the point across effectively enough. This is more of a nitpick than anything else, I admit, but I do think it's a little bit of a coincidence that out of the 10,000 employees, the only people the Doctor and gang bump into are the only people who matter. The fact that there are only 2 or 3 people involved in the whole conundrum doesn't give the impression of a lively workplace. You know, all I'm saying is that more workers could have been involved in the story to make the place feel larger than it is, but I don't know, okay, I'm just ahead. At least with Kira and Charlie, they're likeable enough. Both of them have a crush on each other that I can only describe as precious. Yes, it's awkward, cliched and on the nose, but that's why I like it so much. It's not pretending to be subtle about it. It's just adding a sweet moment to an episode that's running along at a nice pace. And to top it all off, it doesn't overstay its welcome. It only lasts about 10 seconds before moving on to what's important.
Khan and Sinclair, the greatest detectives in the galaxy.
Locked.
Jokes aside, there isn't much left to talk about for the next 15 minutes of the episode. It's all pretty solid. The Doctor and gang work with Charlie and... one sec. Judy Millers to try and figure out who's responsible for the missing workers. The group discovers a message that tells them that Kira was taken down to the Foundation level. Yaz, Ryan and Charlie take the shortcut through dispatch in a scene that's actually rather exciting. Yeah, it's a bit over the top and the high five bit was kinda stupid, but I don't really care. I'm just happy to see this episode take advantage of what it has and to have fun with it. This is a far cry from the dull, lifeless radio plays from the episodes prior. Sure, it also has one of the most useless security systems I've ever seen, but it's fun. That's one of the major things this series has been lacking. Fun, and I can get down with this moment no matter how dumb it is. Unfortunately, by the end of the episode it kinda falls apart. The Doctor and gang suspected that the head manager was responsible for all the missing co-workers due to having every missing employee recorded. But it turned out that he was just as stumped as everyone else.
Very bad manners to point guns at people. I've never warned you.
Yeah, dude, haven't we established already that unless you're Indian it isn't okay to use guns? Together, they discover that the robots have been taking workers and liquidizing them. They find an army of robots holding packages full of explosive... bubble wrap. The Doctor does her patented guesswork explaining that these delivery bots are all about to be teleported away. Ryan and Yaz discover pretty much the exact same information except it's shown to us visually, which makes you wonder why they were all separated in the first place. Again, we quickly learn that Charlie was behind this the whole time. He was the one causing all the workers to disappear by getting into the system and making all the robots do his dirty work. The system fought back and took his crush Kira away from him and basically killed her, and was also the reason the Doctor got the cry for help at the very beginning. I'll admit, Kira dying really took me by surprise, based on how Kira and Charlie were shown previously, though that may have been the whole point of the crush scene in the first place. Either way, this moment has a big information dump that is pretty hard to keep up with. It feels very rushed. Let me try and briefly break it down. Charlie hates the fact that the robots were taking all the humans' jobs, so he erected a big master plan to completely destroy Kerblam's reputation by sending explosive bubble wrap to thousands of innocent people, so people would think twice about trusting automated machines. This could work if only Charlie wasn't a completely different character from how he was 10 minutes ago. To go from a shy, stuttering lover boy to a shouting, crazed activist doesn't feel right. There was also nothing, absolutely nothing, to show Charlie even trying to stop everyone from discovering what he's been up to. Still, on the other hand, the theme of jobs becoming more automated to the point where there is no need for people is a very interesting and relevant topic nowadays. I could see this episode being brought up years later if things turn out that way. It's definitely something to sprout up very interesting discussions, something I can only praise this episode for. With that said, it doesn't stop this ending from feeling rushed and all over the place. It's almost as if the original plan was to make the villain of the story the head manager, but since they already had a white businessman be the antagonist a few episodes before, they decided to change it at the last minute to the maintenance guy, so it doesn't look as if the BBC hates every single executive on the planet. It feels more like a last-minute decision, based on how rushed and exposition-heavy the last 10 minutes are. On second thought, it was all probably planned from the very beginning to throw you off guard. I mean, the head manager had absolutely no other purpose than being a red herring. Like Yaz, if he wasn't in the episode, very little would change. I don't know, man. I've stopped caring at this point. I'm already a bit disappointed that Charlie and Kira's crush isn't gonna go anywhere since they're both freaking dead now. Let's finish this off. Charlie activates all the robots, everyone has a little scuffle, the Doctor stops the robots teleporting away by making all of them pop the bubble wrap, exploding all of them and Charlie with them. Forget him or Kira. It's Dan we'll be reminiscing about. You know, the person I mentioned previously that had no point other than being someone to die. Well, to be fair, it's not like this is the first time Doctor Who has had a red shirt, but if you're going to kill someone off, don't bother giving them a backstory the way you did this character. At least, do something with them before you off them. The episode ends like any other with everyone standing awkwardly in the TARDIS as if they're all college students with nothing in common out for a drink. This episode really interests me. It's the sort of episode where the theme, story and direction can be viewed in a number of different ways. Personally, like I said before, I find this episode to be a mixed bag. There were some things I thought were good, but there were also some things I thought were dumb, mainly the poorly written dialogue and the rushed ending. Take the scene where the Doctor talks to the boss for the first time.
I'm the Doctor. I'm new. You are?
Java Slade, warehouse executive, your boss.
Well, you've certainly got the clipboard for it. Be nicer to Kira, please.
How would you like a warning for insubordination?
I'd love one. I could add it to my collection. Gentle people skills advice for you, Mr. Slade. Respect goes both ways. The best managers, the really good ones, value their staff and know instinctively if someone's in trouble. Or is asking for help. Now, how good a manager are you? Know anyone who needs help?
Get back to work. All of you.
See, I saw this scene as condescending, semi-educational, pointless schlock coming from the Doctor, ragging on about people's skills to another impolite executive like she's done before. On the other hand, there's people that can see the scene as the Doctor seeing this boss as a suspect and wording her speech in a way that disguises her full intention of being there. And you know what? I can totally get down with that. Though, to be fair, I think the only reason I saw this scene otherwise was because of the previous interactions the Doctor has had with other characters. I see now this certain interaction had a double meaning, but I never realised it straight away because the interaction itself doesn't feel any more different than, say, the Doctor going on about recycling properly. That's just one example of a number of moments like this. I'm sure if you looked hard enough you could find many like it. Like this moment. Yaz is so pointless that it almost makes the shot seem intentional. Yeah, look, this episode probably isn't as good or as bad as I'm saying it is. At the end of the day, it has all the same problems every single other episode this season has, except to a lesser extent. Though because of that, it's the first episode I'd think I'd describe as something other than bad. Take of that what you will, I'm just ready to move on. You all know what time it is. Bingo. In this episode, we have Julie Hesmond as a major role, kind of, and Lee Mack as a minor role. Same as always, fellas. Pop 'em on. You know, I've done the math already, and no matter what, we're not going to win the bingo button. I'm going to stick with it. I promise there's a point to this bingo. Anyway, it was quite fun talking about this episode, much more than the last one. Right, that's all for tonight. I hope you all have a good night. Take care.